Hello everyone, it's Phil here from One-to-One IELTS, and in today's lesson we're going to be looking at paraphrasing again. In this lesson we're going to have a look at 3 different techniques to help you paraphrase your task to question statements. This is something that you're going to need to be able to do in the introductions of your essays. Here is the question statement that we're going to have a look at paraphrasing for today. Advanced technology has brought many beneficial changes to the world. However, some old people today struggle with the use of technologies such as mobile phones and the internet. So we're going to have a look at a couple of techniques we can use to paraphrase this question. When paraphrasing, the first thing that we want to be thinking about is changing sentence structure. Don't make the typical mistake that many students make when they look at a question statement and they just try to change words for synonyms one by one. This will lead to having really unnatural sentences, and a lot of your vocabulary just won't fit the current sentence structure. Finding synonyms should be the very last part of your paraphrase. Always look to change sentence structure first. The first thing I see about this question is that it is 2 separate sentences. Therefore, we can very simply use a technique which I call swap and combine. That means that we are going to take the second sentence and make it the first sentence, and the first sentence make it the second sentence, and then combine the 2 sentences together to make what is known as a complex sentence in English. So in order to do this, we take the first part and we put the second. So here we have swapped, but what we now need to do is combine. And we can see with this word, however, which was in the original, that these 2 sentences are contrasting ideas. Therefore, we can use some conjunction of contrast to connect these 2 together. So what we're going to do, rather than starting with however, we can start with while or although. Now, don't make the common mistake of putting a comma after this. The comma comes at the end of the sentence. And obviously, if we've joined these 2 sentences, this is no longer going to be a capital letter. Now, often when we swap and combine, you'll find some words in the second sentence were referring to the first sentence in the original question statement. Therefore, we have to go through and make sure there are no referencing words which no longer make sense. So while some old people today, this is so far it's fine, struggle with the use of technologies such as mobile phones, the internet, advanced technology has brought many beneficial changes to the world. So actually there, in this particular sentence, there are no referencing words that we have to worry about, and this makes grammatical sense as it is. However, I think we can still paraphrase this a little bit better. Let's look at these 2 clauses one at a time. The moment we've joined them together, we can still look at them and we can see if we can change the sentence structure a little bit more. So let's have a look at this and try our second technique. So for this technique, we're going to have a look at 1 clause at a time. So this is what we have so far. I'm going to look at this clause. We don't need to look at the while at the moment because we're just going to try and see if we can make these 2 active voice clauses into passive voice clauses. Something you'll note that not all sentences are going to go from active to passive. This is because certain language doesn't really work very well in the passive voice. So this really is a bit of, we're going to try it and see if it works. If it doesn't work, don't panic. We'll try something different. This is the clause that we're going to see if we can change from active to passive. Our subject here is some old people. I'm just for the moment for this particular exercise going to remove today because we can add this back in a little bit later. Struggle with is our verb, and then our object is the use of technologies such as mobile phones and the internet. So in order to make something passive, we put the object first, we use the verb to be with the past participle of the original verb, and then we put the subject at the end of the sentence. We're going to start with our object, which is the use of technologies such as mobile phones and the internet. Next, we want to look at our verb. Our verb here is struggled with. So we're going to have the present simple passive. And then we add by and our subject. Our subject here is some old people. Now, looking at this sentence, it doesn't quite work because struggled with isn't usually used in the passive voice. However, don't panic. What we can do is see if we can connect our object and subject in a different way. So I asked my students how they would do this, and one of my students mentioned, rather than saying the use of technologies, we can actually just talk about technologies. The technologies such as mobile phones and the internet. And rather than saying is struggled with, are troublesome for some old people. Looking at the sentence, we haven't actually changed this from active to passive, but we have changed the sentence structure. And the reason we were able to think of technologies that are troublesome is that we put the object first and the subject later, and suddenly made, in this instance, the object become a subject. We are very unlikely to have thought of this slightly different sentence structure if we were just staring at the original structure of this sentence. So by changing the object to being at the beginning and the subject to be at the end, we were able to think of a different way of writing about this information. Now let's see if we can use the same techniques on the next clause. The clause that we're going to look at here is advanced technology has brought many beneficial changes to the world. We want to see, is it possible to make this active voice sentence passive voice? So our object, many beneficial changes to the world, and our subject, advanced technology. Our verb here is has brought. This would be present perfect, so we want present perfect passive. As always, we'll take our object to start with. We're going to change this to the present perfect passive. Many beneficial changes. We see our object is plural. So rather than has, it'll be have been brought by. And then we have our subject, advanced technology. So we normally say not brought by object, we say brought about by. This would be a more natural prepositional collocation. Now let's check if it makes sense. Many beneficial changes to the world have been brought about by advanced technology. In this instance, this works really well. So this verb has brought changes into the passive voice really nicely. So whereas in the original sentence we tried, which was a struggle with, doesn't really work in the passive voice, this one works really well. And therefore, that's all we need. We've managed to paraphrase this clause really nicely. Now we've got two clauses we were going to put back together, and the sentence structure has been changed quite dramatically. And this will already give us a very good paraphrase. Okay, so now I've put these two clauses back together again. We're going to put the while back in here. And if you remember at the beginning, we'd removed today when we were trying to change this from active to passive. So put that back in. So far, this makes perfect grammatical sense. The meaning is exactly the same. We swapped and combined this second clause that we changed from active to passive. This first clause, while we couldn't quite make it active to passive, we realized that we could use a different verb and adjective here to connect this in a slightly different sentence structure. And you'll notice this looks very different to our original question statement already. And we haven't even looked at synonyms yet. Most students, what they do when they're asked to paraphrase, they just go here and go, what is a synonym for the word advanced? What is a synonym for the word technology? What is a synonym for the word brought? This ends up creating really awkward paraphrases. At the moment, if we just left this as it is a good paraphrase. However, we can now look for easy synonyms that we are 100% sure of. So today, this is a very easy word to find a synonym for. These days or nowadays will be a really natural way of finding a synonym here. So we can just say, while these days, technologies such as mobile phones, so mobile phones or cellular and the internet. Just a quick note about the grammar here. In English, we always put the definite article before the internet, and the internet does not have a capital letter. These are two very common grammar mistakes I see all the time. Here, are troublesome. Well, are troublesome is already a synonym for they struggle with, so we don't have to worry here. For some, well, we know some is very easy to find a synonym for. We could use certain, or a number of would be good. Old people, we can maybe use elderly people. Many beneficial changes. Beneficial, I think we could have positive, and many, is another word that's easy to find synonyms for, a lot of. To the world is a world, so we don't need to paraphrase this, have been brought about by. For me, I can't at the moment think of an easy synonym for this. So if I can't think of an easy synonym, I'm just going to keep this. Remember, I've already changed the verb tense. This is already paraphrased in a certain way. And this is what I really want you to realize. You don't need to paraphrase every single word. As long as you have changed the sentence structure, then you don't have to worry so much about synonyms. If you don't have to worry so much about synonyms, you don't have to take so many risks with your synonyms, and you're much more likely to keep the original meaning of the question statement, which is key when you are paraphrasing. So they've been brought about by, and again, advanced technology. For me, advanced technology is advanced technology. I'm not going to change this. Notice how much of this I'm not changing as far as synonyms go, because I don't need to. The difficult part of the paraphrase was changing the sentence structure. Once you've successfully changed sentence structure, if you don't see obvious synonyms, then keep the original words. I can't stress that enough. Don't force synonyms. If you're desperately looking for synonyms for every single word in your paraphrase, you're very likely to make a lot of mistakes which are going to actually change the meaning. After we've finished, we always need to read one more time to make sure that we haven't actually changed the meaning at all. While these days, technologies such as cellular phones and the internet are troublesome for certain elderly people, a lot of positive changes to the world have been brought about by advanced technology. This has exactly the same meaning as the original. It's a very natural sentence. Nothing here feels like it's forced or awkward. This is the type of paraphrase I would expect to see in a Band 9 essay. Follow the steps that I've shown you in this video, and you will find that your paraphrasing improves in leaps and bounds. Focus on sentence structure. Don't focus on the synonyms. Synonyms are your final step, and we're only looking for easy synonyms. When you can think of a really easy synonym that you are 100% sure of, use it. If you don't, we keep the original word. And that is how you would paraphrase this question statement. If you found today's lesson useful, don't forget to boop that like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already so you don't miss out on future content. Good luck to you in your studies, and I'll see you in the next lesson.